to go ahead and razzle the crowd in and go ahead and call to order the St. Joseph Planning Commission of January 12th, 2026. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, item number 3, agenda review and adoption. I would entertain a motion. I got a motion and a second by both of them. Any discussion? Awesome. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Great, passes. Number 4, election of chair and vice chair for 2026. Okay, just wait. Anything you would like to say?
No, this one's all on you.
Okay.
Jenna's mouth.
Chair.
Okay.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to keep me as chair. Any discussion? I would be open if anybody else wants to take it. You just got here, right? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Usually we should have voted Mark in. All right. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and also vote in Isabel here for vice chair again for 2026.
Second.
And I got a second. Any discussion? You good with that?
That's fine.
Anybody else want to take it? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Now on to number 5.
Yeah, so we have a new planning commission member this evening. So Cody, I can hand it off over to Cody if Cody wants to say anything. Otherwise, he will be joining us.
So yeah, if you want to just give us a little bit.
My name's Cody. I lived in St. Joe my whole life. I have a family out here and I'm happy to be part of the community.
Awesome. Well, welcome. We're excited to have you. Thank you so much for serving. All right. Any questions for him? We got anything? No, they're good. All right. We're going to move on to number 6 out there. We have public comments. This is anybody willing to speak about anything except on the agenda. Feel free to come up to the stand, say your name, where you live, if you have anything to say, not on the agenda for tonight. Going once? Going twice? All right. I'm going to go ahead and close public comments. All right. And then we're going to look for number 7, approval of the minutes of December 8th, 2025. I got a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Here we are, number 8, all the way down. Took us 4 minutes. Pretty good. New business, A, joint planning board member appointments.
This is another one where I'm looking over to
Yes.
you. So Joint Planning Board meets as needed, remember? They meet on the second Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. as needed. Typically, that means 1 or 2 meetings a year. So we just need 2 volunteers from the PC to serve on that. We also have 2 council liaisons, so 4 total city reps, and then the township also has 4 reps. So just 2 people.
Are
That's all we
you already on that or no? So you're already on that, so you need 2 others
Yeah.
besides Andrew.
And I will say I did speak with Mark
Okay, good.
before. He is not going to object if anyone volunteers him.
Because it was me and him on it. I know last year, and I was vice chair. I've been on it for 3 years, so I'm okay stepping away if Isabel, you would like to join. Okay, well then I would make a motion for Isabel and Mark to be on the joint planning board.
I'll second that.
Second, any discussion? It's really fun.
Sure.
Awesome. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Welcome to the joint planning board. All right, now Nate, we're going to get to you. Let's see, 8B, future land use amendment.
All right. Thank you, Chair. So for consideration this evening is a project submitted by the monastery. This project entails 3 separate actions this evening. First one being the future land use amendment, second rezone, and the third is the preliminary plat. A little bit of background. The Sisters of St. Ben's are proposing to build a new monastery. This monastery is going to be a all-in-one campus. That will include a chapel and living quarters. The proposed location of the monastery would be over existing lot lines. Thus, why we are here this evening for these 3 different actions. The goal really is to just consolidate multiple outlots into one contiguous lot. Right now, there's 5 or 6 outlots, so the proposal is to consolidate all of those to allow the facilitation of the new building. Here's a couple overview maps. The one that shows all the outlots, those are what I am referencing when I say what's going to be consolidated. So all those outlots will be consolidated into one larger lot. You can see the graphic that's outlined in blue. It's about 253 total acres once all those are combined. And you can see up in the, let's see if I can get my laser pointer to work here. This is the proposed location of the new monastery building right here. Future land use amendment. Included a table in your packets and cut and paste that over here as well. So this is the current descriptions. So we have various outlots, outlot D, E, F, G, and H, which you can see in this map over here. Those are right now guided in our comprehensive plan for different uses like community-oriented mixed use, public uses. Those would change to just the educational district.
Hey,
We
Nate.
consolidate. Yep.
Could you give us a little bit of overview of what community-oriented mixed use means?
Yeah, so it's essentially a mixed use district within our comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
We do not have a zoning designation within our traditional zoning ordinance that follows community oriented mixed use, but it's a mix of residential and commercial.
Okay.
So some of those outlots are guided for that use within our comprehensive plan. We would transition those into one guidance to facilitate the construction of the new monastery. So again, taking all what's outlined in yellow here, consolidating that into one, and with that consolidation, cleaning up those different zoning designations within our comprehensive plan and our rezone, which I'll get to here. The rezoning, so again, this is the current zoning on how those properties are zoned as it is today. You can see here too the different outlots. Outlot D, which is right up here off Minnesota Street. That's currently zoned R1 single family. Then we have Outlot E right here, which is zoned B3 general business. And then also Outlot F, which is zoned that way. Outlot G is zoned how we're proposing to rezone. So there's no change in how Outlot G is. Outlot G is the larger one right here. And then Outlot H, which is the furthest lot to the south, which is adjacent to I-94, is currently rural residential. Those would all fall under our educational and ecological district. That's again to make the zoning all consistent in one as part of that lot consolidation. This is the preliminary plat showing all those lots as one here. Some staff comments which the applicants have addressed is at the time of final plat, so pending tonight's action and then action at the city council next Tuesday on the preliminary plat, the next step for the applicant would be to submit a final plat. And at that final plat, we ask that there are easements that are dedicated around the lot in these areas that are highlighted in yellow. Just standard drainage and utility easements. We do that as part of any new plat. So the requested actions tonight are to open and close the public hearing on the future land use amendment. And then we would ask for a motion on that resolution. And then also open and close public hearing for the rezone, ask for a motion on that resolution. And then the last public hearing is on the preliminary plat. And the subsequent resolution you can see numbered right here. So these resolutions are drafted as they are contingent on final plat approval, which would be again the subsequent step and the last step in consolidating these lots and cleaning up the zoning. So
Great.
I will pause there with any questions if you have any.
Does anybody have any questions currently? It's first big thing, if you want to speak. No. Yep, I have nothing. I just really wanted to know kind of what that, just you already explained what I wanted for the educational piece of it. If there's no other comments, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Everybody good? No comments from Nate? All right. So that'll lead us to 8B. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for future land use amendment. And if anybody would like to speak on that, please step up, say your name. Don't all move at once. Anybody on the call? Beautiful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing for the future land use. And then I would entertain a motion on the resolution PC 2026-001.
I'll make a motion.
I've got a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? That one passes. Okay, I will go ahead then and open the public hearing for the rezoning. Anybody would like to speak on that one? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that one as well, and then I will entertain a motion for O2.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I got a motion.
I'll second.
I got a second. Any more discussion? Okay. I've got a motion to second. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, that one passes. And third and final, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for the preliminary plat. First two were really lively. Anybody want to speak on the third? Okay, we'll go ahead and close that one as well. And then we will entertain the motion for 003.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Those pass. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to old business, number 9. 9A, Nate. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Chair. So next item up for consideration is also a public hearing as well. So this is coming back to the Planning Commission after a few months of conversation and discussion and direction from the commission. We brought back a final draft ordinance amendment for tattoo shops and beauty salon. What this ordinance amendment would do, as written, is it would add a definition for a tattoo shop and body art. And it would also define where that use is allowed. Right now, that's drafted to be allowed in the B1 Central Business District, which is our downtown district. And then we also are adding a definition for a beauty salon. There is a public hearing that's required for this. So we would ask that the commission take action on the ordinance resolution and the summary publication. You'll recall that this really started off in conversation because we had an inquiry that was interested in potentially doing a tattoo studio, and we just did not have a clear use that aligned with that. So what we're attempting to do is clearly define and then define what the use is and then also where it's allowed. So I'll pause there with questions. Otherwise, that's my presentation on that.
Anybody have questions? I've got just one. So pretty much only in the ordinance, the only thing that we're changing right now is pretty much just to add to F tattoo and body art. And then you define body or beauty salon and tattoo body art, correct?
Yeah, so a beauty salon, how we're defining that is it's a business where people receive professional cosmetic treatments like hairdressing and manicures. And a tattoo body art, we're defining it as a licensed business that provides permanent tattoos and makeup to clients using needles and ink.
Okay. So that's really the only thing right now for,
Do those
The-
definitions kind of follow what other cities
Yeah.
have done?
Yeah, so I would say they're as close to the majority of what I've seen out there. A lot of them, some may just have body art, some may just have tattoo. But we recognize that not everyone equates the two, so we put tattoo and body art because it's
Together.
Yeah.
using an ink on the body
Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
So
Did,
yep.
You said you were gonna talk to legal about like the piercing part of it. Did that get counted then in part of that? And with the ink and needles, like, does that count piercings then?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what the question was back then. I did talk with legal in terms of the definitions and that, and they were okay with that. And regardless, any use has to follow state law and guidance and regulations. Yep. So if there's state licenses that are needed on top of, others, then they would be obligated to follow those. Yep. Yep. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? So you're looking for us to, do we need to amend the ordinance?
So your first action will be to open up a public hearing.
Yep.
And then your second action would be to act on the resolution amending the ordinance. And then your third action would be to act on the summary publication.
Okay. That's what I was going to look here for. All right, well, I'll go ahead right now and we will open up the public hearing for the zoning amendment, tattoo shops and definitions for beauty salon and tattoo shops. Please step up, say your name, where you live.
Kevin Klusner, 29645 95th Avenue. I have no problem with a tattoo or body art business or studio opening up. I just would hope that we have some type of sense of aesthetics if it's going to be downtown. I mean, when you drive around greater Minnesota, you go through some areas where the tattoo places look kind of shady, for lack of a better word. And I'm not suggesting you can put that into an ordinance, just kind of a general understanding that we have a nice downtown. It's welcoming. We have some really awesome businesses downtown, and I just don't want to take away that charm that we've got. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Any more discussions then? Nate, I can't find the packet. Where are the requests for it again? So now we're looking for publication or no?
Yeah, so the ordinance resolution would be ordinance PC 2026-004. And then the summary publication would be, give me a second here.
005.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't have it pulled up here.
Uh,
Yes,
zero-
PC 2026-005
Summary of publication.
publication.
All right. Any more discussions before we do that? I know with the comments, I know it's a good idea of business is business. We definitely want business, but I think, I agree with Mr. Klusner to say that welcoming, obviously, if we have a business come down, they still also have to abide by our ordinances, right? Of how the aesthetics look in downtown too. So hopefully that's something, obviously, that will be taken in consideration to hopefully have a welcoming business as well. So thanks for that. But I will go ahead and entertain a motion right now for the zoning amendment for PC 2026-004.
I'll make a motion.
I got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the approval of PC 2026-004 say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, passes. And then I would look for summary of publication for PC 2026-004 or 005, excuse me.
I'll make-
I got a
Second.
motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. That gives our old business. Now we're on to other business. Yes, Nate, 10A,
Yeah, thank you.
discussion only, right?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'll just kind of provide an overview of this. This is our first step in what we've been tasked with. So I'll give a little bit of background and then kind of set the stage a little bit. I did include some information in the packets, and I'll kind of explain some of that here. But really, this is coming forward. We talked several months back. We had an interest from a developer to do smaller residential lots with private septic and or wells. Our current rural residential district requires a minimum of 10 acres in size. A lot of the properties within St. Joseph are zoned rural residential. That's the default zoning district that township properties have been annexed into historically. And that district allows a variety of different uses that are tied to continuation of township type of uses like agriculture, farming, feedlots, things of that nature. So that's kind of the basis of that zoning district. So with this request, we recognize that a change would be needed if we were to facilitate smaller subdivision lots that would be not on all city utilities. So this means that we either have to establish a new zoning district for that, or we amend the rural residential district and we put in like a conditional use permit or a planned unit development process to outline what the requirements would be for a district like this. We really need to, part of this work is going to be clearly defining the standards on lot sizes, utilities, where in the city this would be appropriate, and then the limitations. Part of why this is being considered and part of the interest on why the council had this as a item as well for us to look into is there's infrastructure concerns right now in terms of we want to facilitate more single family housing growth in the community, but in areas that are prime for that, there's lift stations that are required. Those lift stations are not feasible for the developer or the city to support financially. Water service can be extended to a lot of properties. Water isn't usually as challenging. It's the sewer component that is the most challenging. So it's just some policy considerations as we start to think through what would a ordinance look like and what would that entail. Is we're going to be looking at like city boundaries, future growth areas. We want to avoid allowing this type of development in an area that can create like an isolated pocket where there's a subdivision that's not on utilities, but the subdivisions around it are on utilities, or as the city grows, now we have a pocket. There's, lots of reasons why we wouldn't want to facilitate that or, support that. So kind of clearly defining where in the city this would be allowed. Part of the homework that I've did thus far is also I reached out to a septic designer as well, just to kind of get their input and feedback on, what's the appropriate size of a lot. With septic designs, you have to have a primary location and a secondary location. And there's a lot of factors that go into individual lots and what determines the suitability of a septic system. So I would say there's not like a golden minimum size per se. But one thing that they did recommend that as staff I would support too is the county is the ones right now that reviews all septic designs. So looping in the county, once we draft an ordinance in that, looping them in early in the process at like a preliminary plat stage would be advisable. So then that way they can help determine as well if these developments are suitable for septic systems, and have another eye on there. So again, just some staff guidance in that. Also consideration of maximum density for these subdivisions. It is possible, I'm cautious on opening up the floodgates for smaller lot subdivisions, not on full city utilities, because it's possible where I've seen in other cities where they've had a 4 or 5 phase project that had, 100+ lots that is all well and septic. That can prove challenging. So having smaller caps on how many lots you can do is something I think the commission should consider or discuss. And then also, we wouldn't want to, of course, allow this option just solely based on the cost of utility extensions and the developer, having to upfront that are using that as justification to do these. And then, so there's kind of three pathways I would say on where we could head with a ordinance itself. The first is we could draft an ordinance that allows septic and city water. So they're required to hook onto water, but they're allowed septic. That's one option. Second option would be allowance of both private well and septic, likely on slightly larger lots than if we were to require septic and city water. Or the third one is to amend that rural residential district and then have a conditional use permit process or that would allow these in that district, but would allow smaller lot sizes than the minimum 10 acres that we have right now. So I know that thrown a lot to the Planning Commission in that, and there was a lot of information that was provided in the packet. The purpose of tonight is to kind of get the commission thinking through those things. I would hope to come back in the next month with just some very rough drafted kind of language, with the goal of potentially in April having something where we are having a formal hearing and considering adoption of changes to allow a development like this. We will also have conversation with the council as well, likely at a workshop. So that way we're coordinating between the planning and planning commission and the council to kind of come to a shared goal or consensus on how this would look. So I will pause there. I feel like I've been talking for a while. So questions, thoughts?
Tapping the button.
I have many. Feel free, please.
So a question, I guess, with if we did something with the like zoning itself, you were talking about like an amendment for like possibly even doing PUDs. Would that be a possibility with like some stipulation that like as a majority of the systems start to fail, they may need to connect to city water and sewer if available at that time?
Yeah. So regardless of if we add a new zoning district or if we amend the rural residential and add a conditional use permit process or that, a subdivision will require a developer's agreement, which we will stipulate the specific conditions tied to that. I included a example of a developer's agreement from the city of Sartell, who has allowed these developments in their community. It's called Northern Meadows. And you'll see within that developer's agreement, there are requirements to tied to that exact question. Oftentimes, too, these developments, we will reserve larger easements and require larger easements for that same purpose, that down the road when sewer becomes more readily available, that there is the ability to put in all of those utilities in there. One kind of conversation with the, allowance of septic and well or allowance of just septic and requiring city water is it's one thing when a septic system fails. I think it's another thing when a well fails. That creates a lot more challenges and liabilities, not just on developer, but also on city. If you can't get water, you can't do much. So, that's something to consider too, as you're thinking about which direction to head and which way to go. Think through those kind of different scenarios like that. Again, from my staff perspective, we want to be very transparent in the potential areas where we would allow this and clearly define that. But it should be pretty limited in terms of that, just because of potential problems you could create with allowing septic and well, septic's failing, then you're coming in doing utilities assessments. So it just kind of can be challenging.
So the whole overall issue is that we just don't have the sewer depth that we need to be able to tie these subdivisions in, is that correct? To be able to get the sewage out of there? I mean, the sanitary lines aren't deep enough? Is that the main issue, or what are, I mean, are we?
So can I can piggyback off of that. Like, and maybe you can help us, Andrew, because I know you're on the council too, but you say that we have ongoing logistical challenges and that the council's expressed interest in smaller residential services, right? Like we want to get single dwelling family here in St. Joseph, but we also don't want to put the cart before the horse. What's the stipulation for the lift stations? Is it just the money? Like I understand you don't want to just pass it on to the developer. It's a lot of money, but why isn't it interested in looking at what the lift station would take or grants or things along those lines so you don't even have to run into these problems down the line?
Yeah, so I can speak on the second part of that, on the grant element of it. There's just not grants available for infrastructure like this for market rate single family.
Okay.
The legislature has put a lot more attention on residential because of the housing crisis and things like that. And there has been a program that has been established that it's kind of similar to what we call the Business Development Public Infrastructure Grant, which is meant for industrial parks to get lift stations and proper utilities. However, it's a very tiny amount of money, and a lot of cities, including us at the last round, did not qualify. And if we did qualify, you're talking about maybe $50,000 tops, which
For $1 billion lift
yeah,
station.
which is not going to
Um,
get us to the finish line. So I think part of the conversation is, are there these, like, let's call them edge areas of the community where we know that the community and the city's growth will not extend past that, and we know that there's challenges in getting those utilities there, but they can offer a transition from the properties outside the city that are straight rural to something that's a little bit less rural to then our urban core and our,
So my other question would
Yeah.
be, and it goes back to there is, if we don't have a lift station, we do hookups out there for water, correct? Which should be easier. And then you do septics. And then let's say down the line, we have money to be able to put a lift station in. How does that rework then in getting them hooked up to sewer?
Yeah,
Because now
so
you
it
have
would
all of
come.
these septics.
Yep.
out
So it
there.
would come down to developers agreement and what is stipulated in the developers agreement for that particular subdivision. Some subdivision developers agreements will read that once sewer becomes readily available, and you would define what readily available means, that sewer is then required to be hooked onto that development. Now, it's always harder to come after the fact, right? Because now you're dealing with, let's call it 30 lots, 30 homeowners who will state that, hey, my septic system is just fine. I just put this in 5 years ago. I don't want, so you're going to have very strong language, and you're going to have to be willing to, if that comes to that time, have a very strong developers agreement and justification. We, of course, would work with our legal team in that. But these are developments that, we would foresee probably in areas that, they might be 20, 25 years out for sewer potential, if ever, very boundaries of the community, areas where it just can't grow past. This is going to be the last line or the last stop on the train ride to get the utilities too. So I think it's about kind of defining
Sure.
where that is.
Pull up our zoning map.
Yeah.
And I only say that because again, I have a strong stance, and I know, Corey, we've talked about this. Like, I don't want to, again, run before we could walk. You want to grow responsibly because you don't want to have other situations arise if you don't have the proper stuff in place to be able to get those residents hooked up. I'm not saying that it's not a good deal. And I know for you as a developer, and I'm saying Corey, who's in the audience, that's a lot of money for you to put on as a developer for the lift station.
But I mean, we could say too, in theory, if you allow city water, septic, have the language that says upon failure of systems or readily available, you're increasing your tax capacity in the meantime, which should allow those expansions
Yep.
quicker.
And I know we're talking about this parcel right here,
Yes.
down here, and it's a good
Yep.
one. And I think that's, with the school out there, family, that's exactly where I think we would want to build. So, I just say I want to be able to, again, not cut us off at the heels to say that if we agree to this and then we can get a lift station in there somehow that, you pass it back on to hook them up so that you could expand farther if we need to.
Mhm.
Or, I look at when we talk about some of the constraints of future annexation of the city boundaries may shift over time.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's a big concern too. And if you're going to annex some of those in, but again, let me be clear, I'm not opposed to getting single family housing in the city of St. Joseph. I just want to see ultimately a lift station there. Like that's just my personal belief. If we're in agreement and we look at like your potential options and pathways, I think we would want to amend the existing rural residential district altogether, right? To say your 1 acre lots, things along those lines. So it's not 10, and which allows smaller, like you said, lots through the conditional use permit. And then again, you can permit the septic, but require the water hookups, at least at a minimum, right? And then again, I like how you said apply your strict limitations to avoid the widespread CUP based on subdivisions of where it's at.
Yeah, so if that's the route that we ended up going, yeah, I would strongly advise the commission and the council that we put in specific stipulations within the ordinance itself, and we don't just like say, okay, you can do this as long as you submit a conditional use permit. Because then, if that is the case, we may see an influx of conditional use permits.
Yes.
And then we would have to have justification to deny substantial justification,
Yep.
which is very difficult. So I
Correct.
would recommend that if we have it as a CUP, we say it's a conditional use subject to A, B, C, D,
Correct.
E. Subject
Yep.
to a minimum lot size of 1.5 acres, subject to a maximum lot subdivision of 30, and we would go
Yep.
down the road. And then that would help us kind of hopefully paint a picture
Mhm.
on where exactly these would go. Because yes, the whole conversation did, yes, start with this lot right here, which is and could be a good candidate for something like this.
Mhm.
But we have to look at the entire city, right? We have to
Correct.
look at if someone's over here and they want to do it, if someone's, oh, they're right here and they're right next, and really trying to limit that potential
Is-
again because of the problems that it could cause. So
Is there a way to put in the CUP some link to that availability of services within X amount of years, looking at like the city's CIP, like something like that? Like if there's going to be utilities in that area within 5 years, the answer could still be no. Like, I mean, I don't want to make it too.
yeah, so I mean, we could,
complicated.
I would say at this stage, it's really about brainstorming what kind of conditions you as a commission would recommend and want to see. And then we start drafting some of that, and then we start working with legal on, is this legality, does it check through, because forecasting where utilities are going to be 5 years, 10 years from now is a very hard thing to do.
Mhm.
No cities grow like a traditional planned,
Mhm.
like if a city planner was growing a city, they don't grow incrementally outward. It's Farmer Bob up in the, northwest corner who, wants to sell his property, it's those kinds of things. And how do we manage that? So,
I guess
yeah.
I'm in agreement with John that I would like to see it be city water. I'm okay with septic. But we do need, yes, some stipulations, and I would like to see something about if systems start to fail or availability of services, you must hook up within X amount of time, or if the majority, you must hook up, that type of thing.
Well, then if I go back one step, I know, in looking at your reason for exploring this topic, again, we want housing, we want people here. yeah, it's a desirable town to want to live in, right? I'm not saying it's not, but it goes back to, many areas require that lift station, which involve, we know, high capital cost. And the other one says ongoing operational and logistical challenges.
Mhm. Is
What are those?
that from my memo?
Yeah, it's very open-ended. And
Yeah,
again, I
yeah.
know
I think-
in talking
yeah.
with developers and stuff
Yep.
like that, like it's $1 million. That's a lot of money to
Yep.
put in a lift station
Yep.
but you get that in there. And yes, we talk about, and Corey, we've talked about this before. We have 32 lots out there, but if you get a lift station, you might be able to put more single homes out there, correct? And hopefully sell more homes. But I want to know, what is the ongoing operational and logistical challenges besides the cost?
And what is our long-term
Yep.
plan here?
And
So is
do-
it just to keep trying to,
Bring people into the city. I mean,
right, which I agree
it's-
with,
it's
bring,
good.
right.
It brings in
people
money,
into
it
the
brings
city,
in
but what is
businesses.
the long, I
Yep.
mean, if we're already having issues with this,
Mhm.
what is our long-term plan on this?
Like,
What
don't
is
get me
our
wrong, in
solution or-
50 years,
Yeah.
I might not be here, but are we just kicking the can down to the next generation for it to be their problem?
Cover some of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's twofold. So I think the first purpose is to think creatively in how we
Mhm.
grow our single family development. But then two, again, going back to this can't be something that just works today. It has to be something
Correct.
that works in the
Mhm.
future, right?
Mhm.
So clearly defining those areas, thinking very far ahead, which is really hard to do nowadays, but 10, 20, 30 years. A good example of this is I-94 right here. Our comprehensive plan has future land use designations for areas that are outside of that. Right now, we do not control that.
Right.
We do not, it's not part of an orderly annexation area. It's not part of anything. So if we were to have more control over that, this would be a future, say annexation or that. So it's thinking about, like I had put in the memo about not just our boundaries now, but our boundaries into the future and what agreements are in place that would, there's some areas of town we're not going to grow past. Like going
that-
again to that example of the lot that brought up this discussion, we're not going to grow past the river because that's
correct.
getting into Wake
Yeah.
Park, right?
Do you have, or does the city have any more strategic plans to annex in any more of the township?
So I would say the most strategic plan that we have that relates to that is our comprehensive plan, which shows the areas west of I-94 under future zoning designations.
Mhm.
I would think that conversation will really heat up when it's our update of our comprehensive plan in 2-3 years. When that gets updated, we're going to have conversation in terms of what is that future area. But that would require us to amend our current orderly annexation area and, have plenty of conversations with the township in terms of that corridor.
Because I know there's hardship when we brought in the annexation last time and they can't hook up to city. They can't hook up to city water. They can't
Right.
hook up to sewer. So again, are we kicking the can down to say, and I'm not opposed to rural, like
Right.
Yeah.
growing it. My question is ongoing operational and logistical challenges.
Mhm.
This has slowed and prevented residential growth. Well, the only thing that slowed it is we don't have a lift station there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So-
Or another plan.
Well, correct. And then again,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to what we talk about if we want to do that. Yes, that'll survive us for 25 to 50 years.
Mhm.
And then I'll be in my 90s, hopefully still alive, but who knows? But it looks at it as, yes, I know we want to grow, but I just like that responsible aspect. And I'm just posing the questions, right? So
Yeah, and one
if
of the
you haven't, like, I know
Yep.
the biggest thing is the high capital cost.
Yeah.
We know that. That's the biggest constraint, I think, right now.
yeah.
But are we just trying to sidestep the $1 million lift station to be able to get homes in there just to get them in?
No, so I would say that we don't want to open floodgates to provide developer justification to come to the city just because of that reason.
Mhm.
There's some design challenges. Design challenges I think can always be overcome. It's just that some design challenges do equate to significantly higher costs. It might be topography things, it might be environmental things. There's a host of different things that would play into that. I would at some point probably invite our engineer to kind of talk a little bit about some of these maps that
Yeah.
I've included in here.
Yeah.
I didn't get a full one-on-one with him in that, but this one right here that's very colorful that kind of looks like a zoning map is showing the future lift station areas in the community, and taking a look at where are those future lift stations, what are some of those challenges besides just getting the pipes there and cost. You can see some of these numbers correspond to the table over here that identifies like what lift station numbers it is. But essentially, different colors are different lift stations and where
Mhm.
they would go. So I think also having conversation about even with these, are there areas in the city that are almost out of reach within these lift station areas? And just kind of trying to paint that picture again of looking at the city as a whole, looking at growth boundaries as a whole, looking at environmental things.
You know,
Trying-
what's rough is, the community center's kind of fallen through. We have a $4 million bond. Can we just acquaint that and have them give that to us? That would be great.
That would solve
Thoughts?
that would solve a lot of problems.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just find it hard to believe that there's
Yeah.
not more money out there to be able to develop, to get good housing and to do it the correct way. Just a thought.
So again, the legislature has increased what it was, which before is nothing.
Yeah.
I would think that in the coming years there will be more
Okay.
resources that will probably go towards that.
Mhm.
But I don't know.
Sure.
And I don't, again, even if there are, is it going to be enough to get us over the hump? The biggest thing is there's really no funding mechanisms for market rate type
Yeah.
of things. So
Okay.
Do we have lift stations in like a capital improvements plan somewhere? Like, I mean, if not, I feel like they maybe should be.
yeah, yep. So I would say how the stance has been that, development. It's been on the shoulders of developers. So and that includes out in our industrial park area. So off County Road 133, right? We have the industrial park. We filled it out. That's another scenario. City doesn't have the money, developer can't afford it. We are seeking bonding money from the state to supplement that so we can make the second industrial park come online and come to fruition. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's all good discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does anybody else? I feel like I've talked a lot too, but anything? Just learning?
Just learning.
Okay. What do you guys think? Anything?
I guess I have some of the same thoughts. I guess that my question is just that, yeah, what are we doing long term? Like you had said, what are we doing long term instead of just, yes, you want to bring the housing in, I get that. You want to, I think that's maybe a good short term solution, but what is the long term plan then to try to solve this so it's not
Can we
an
limit the
ongoing issue
number?
all the way down?
What's that?
Can we limit the number of them? You can only only allow X amount.
So yeah, we can put up many types of different stipulations. So if you mean, can we limit the number as in like limit the number of like lots or limit the number of developments?
That we allow
Like putting a cap on it kind of thing?
for now.
Like I said, you could put it in the
Don't know.
CUP, correct? And I know
Yeah, that's a good question.
you brought up, Corey, we had, and
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, you had one where there was like 100 units that we were going to do. And when you came back to us last time, I think you broke it out into 30 or 32. Is that correct? Of the developments there. Okay. So, you look at that of this area that we're talking about for him, for the developer to develop, it's really only 30 lots, but would you say they're over an acre about one?
Yeah.
Do you want, if you could just shed some light, because I know it's been a while, Corey, since we kind of talked about it. And I know we're looking for things and yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Corey.
thanks. My name's Corey Ellert, just a resident in St. Joe and a developer and we did the industrial park like Nate says. I'll just some overview thoughts. I think you guys are really tracking in the right direction. I think my thought on the CUP is a really good tool for you guys to really just kind of gives you that broader brush to say, does this work or doesn't it? And here's the reasons we don't think it does, or here's the reasons we do think it will work. I think when I think about this rural residential, as Nate and I have talked a lot over the last couple of months, this is really one of those, I think, a unique application to a piece of property that just doesn't fit the mold of a traditional residential development. Now, that could be because, like Nate said, maybe you have some environmental challenges. You got a wetland to get through, and you just can't get services there.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, that area too, like you said, we're not going any farther past the river.
Well,
Like that's kind of what you mean is it's kind of its own unique area right there.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was just sharing some big picture oversight for long term.
Yeah.
And I think you guys, you're asking the right questions of yourself that, we have to, if we're going to draft an ordinance, we want it to be able to apply for the next 10 or 20 years to what me and whoever else might come and have a piece of property on the fringe of this community. And I think, the fringes are the important parts. It's those areas of our city, larger parts of our city, that, I think that something like this would work. Now, I also think that when you as a city have to plan like all your housing stock, right? You guys are going to have some conversations in the state and federal are talking about higher density so we can make homes more affordable. And those are good conversations. I think when we look at parcels like this, Cayley Court's a good example. We had 95 acres there. We had, floodplain and other areas and to deal with. This parcel is similar. It just serves a higher or a lower density population or a lower number of lots. And frankly, right now, the people that are building can afford the cost of building. They want a little bigger lot. They don't want to be in the city on a small half an acre lot or a quarter of an acre lot.
So would these lots be to build?
Yeah, so these would be, and to get back to your questions, we have lots that are in like 2.3 all the way down to 1.42 or something like that. There's a couple.
It split out into like 32, didn't it before? Or how many?
32 lots is kind of our preliminary plan. We haven't vetted this past Randy Sabart and, gotten too deep. This is just a very preliminary plan. So we're gonna have to go through that process, of course, for future preliminary plat approval, all those things. But our intentions here are to have low impact, lower density, nice size lots that we can sell to a client base that frankly can't afford to build a home right now. And that might be clients that are ranging from $400,000 to $800,000 home purchases. And that's pretty significant. So I guess that's just a quick narrative on this parcel. We back up to the park. We think that's got some great appeal. And to your point earlier, there was when Archon had this, Joe Bechtold's here. He remembers those days. This was Joe's property, incidentally. And, there was a plan between where Kennedy Elementary School and Woodcrest sits and all of this property. I mean, it was like 980 residential units. I mean, this would have doubled the size of the city of St. Joseph back in 2003 when these parcels were assembled by Archon. So here we are 20 some years later, just trying to still absorb that property that just never came to fruition. So
is that something as a developer, we go and we say, maybe we go for this option 3, right? And we say, hook up the water, can have septic, and then say 15, 20 years down the road, we can get a lift station in there. Does that place onto you then to get the septics out as the developer?
No, I think I don't know if I would recommend that you guys attach yourself to such a steep requirement, because there may just not be feasibility to get city sewer there. Like again, in this parcel, where would we put a lift station to serve this 38? I mean, that one map that Nate had up, it's the purple, it's the stuff north of.
Can you bring that back?
121.
Right here, right?
I'm sorry, it's not purple. It's the orange that you see there, Nate. But the future Jade Road, as it would potentially tie into like 20th Avenue, that's the most location for a lift station. When you do a lift station as a city, you want it to be able to serve hundreds of acres potentially, or a big chunk of land. So a lift station in this parcel, John, would just have its challenges. It
Right.
wouldn't make sense to put a lift station of that cost down there to serve 32 lots.
Especially if you're not going to build past that.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, we've got the river, we've got I-94. There's just some boundary limitations that we'll never go beyond
Yeah.
that.
And that's kind of what I was looking at. That's some of those logistical
Yeah.
challenges if it gets there
Yeah.
too. And so, Nate, I look back, if we look at more of our rural residential to the north, like that's something to where, again, I don't think we want to handcuff ourselves to your point, Corey. If we can get a lift station even farther north, that could supplement. And, you know, instead of this one spot right here, we would want stations more farther north is what you were saying to be able
Yeah.
to get to there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just so cost intense. You want to be able to serve as many residential lots
Mhm.
as possible and users at the end of it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Anybody have questions for Corey?
John, I love over here.
Yep.
So can I speak?
Yeah, you can come up, Joe. Sure. We'll go rogue. Just real quick, say your name, Joe, because I know you live down there too. And then just where you live.
Yeah, I'm Joe Beck. I live on Jade Road, joining the property.
Yeah.
The reason I landed later at that along, I sold it like in early 2000, is because of the difficulty of developing it. The concern I have with that land is it's 8 inches of black sand and it's coarse gravel.
Okay.
And that's the problem with septic systems. I realize the county's responsible for the septic systems, and I know they can develop them
Yeah.
with basically mounds, what I call mound system. You line them with clay so it don't go down
Yeah.
because it's so close to the Sauk River.
Yep.
So,
Great.
and the other thing is, that does the city allow, if I buy, let's say, a 3-acre lot from Corey, and I have to hook up to the water, does it allow it for me to put in a private well to irrigate my land?
To do both. Can you hook up and do a private well?
Only, I'm not talking not the residential, only to irrigate like.
Yeah,
lawn.
for irrigation and that, as long as it's approved through the Department of Health, I think. There's no for irrigation in a rural residential area, we don't have any stipulations against.
So they could do both as long as it's
Yeah,
we had
for
to have hooked up
irrigation.
with
I-
water. They could do a well
This is our one.
for irrigation.
They could do a well for irrigation.
Yeah.
If they're talking about subdividing and creating a 3-acre lot, we wouldn't allow that because it'd have to be at least 10 acres.
Okay.
I mean, when you're used to having your own well and then the city's water is very expensive. I mean, if I have 3-4 acres and I want to water my lawn or vegetation,
Yeah.
some of those lots you can just drive a point down and get water just for that purpose. It would be very
Yeah,
advantageous to do that.
the majority of the rural residential lots, I think, have existing wells already because they're farmland and such, so they use,
Is that something
those
you
and
can
that.
put into the option if we amend the existing rural residential?
Can you explain that? Put in the irrigation option?
That they could do that if they want to have a well for irrigation as well.
Oh.
Instead of for the city hookup. I mean, still have to hook up to city, but could they have a well?
In this
as
case,
well.
it's rural though. It's not rural residential.
Sure.
It's zoned. It's not zoned.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right. It's zoned as an R1, not as an RR. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying
Yeah. that
require
would-
city services, but maybe.
Yep, that wouldn't work.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. This is
Just
good.
Now,
This
now
is
I just
thinking,
had thoughts too. Joe.
Yeah. thinking out loud. This is what we want.
Okay.
So.
Anything else?
No, that's-
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Just a
Yeah.
thought on that. There are a lot of city residential lots that have Sandpoint wells right now, and they just they notify the city, and then they're not out of that watering ban, and then they can sprinkle. It's just for exterior use. So your domestic water, like Joe was saying, still you're required to all your domestic water inside your house has to be city services. But your exterior well, if you wanted to drive a Sandpoint, like Joe said, the water table is probably 9-10 feet. Static water table below there. When we did the other testing we had to do soil borings and determine where that high water mark was on Cayley Court, which is right across the street. Probably pretty similar. Wouldn't you think, Joe? It was like the static water table was like 54 inches below grade.
Oh,
So it's not too far. So you could get a Sandpoint well. They're easy. And it's perfect for watering.
Right.
I just want to just share one thought. Again,
Yep.
I just want to make sure my point is clear that I think as a city, we we want to have a good balanced housing stock and inventory of lots. If you want to live in a small city lot on a patio home and have HOA services, we have those. If you want to live on a nicer, a little larger city lot, have all the city amenities in city streets, curb gutters, sidewalks, we have those. So I think just adding another lane or another option for housing inventory, I think is just a good balanced residential plan. And that's what we're trying to bring here is some larger lots and that don't always have to have city services. We worked through that up on 320th. We worked through the Joint Planning Board. I want to say that was probably 2016 and 2017. It's off of 320th Street. It's called Cedar Ridge Road up there. In fact, Mark Thompson lives up
Yep.
there. And we had an agreement there that all buyers acknowledge that in the event that city services ever does come, they have to accept them. There was a majority requirement. So, 75 or 80% of the people had to request the city services to come in. So you have to have a super majority for the residents to want the services. There you go.
Yep.
And then they couldn't oppose it also. So they couldn't, once it's a decision, there was a caveat in there that they just couldn't fight it or sue the city or, of any frivolous other stuff.
Mhm.
So it was pretty clear line of, in the event that it's required because of failing systems and the safety of all,
Yep.
the city would extend services. And there was.
And I think that's something that we wanted.
Yeah. So I think we can work through that.
Okay,
I'm pretty confident in that.
great. Thanks, Corey. Any other questions? Nate, do you got anything else for us? Did that give you a long-winded answer of which way to go or?
No, this is good.
Yeah.
I appreciate this conversation and the comments and that, and just thinking through this because it's a lot to digest and think through, and we want to make sure we try to do it the best we can. What I would then propose for next month is I'll try to come back with examples of different stipulations and
And like I say,
conditions
I think, are we in agreement kind of, we want to stick with option 3? Do you guys and guys?
I think a CUP is a good idea.
Yep,
Mhm.
with amending the rural residential.
I would love to kick around the idea of creating a new zone.
Okay,
Um,
and we haven't talked about that yet, so yeah.
right. It was one of the options earlier. I think it's a tool.
Sure.
Piggybacking off of what Corey said,
But yeah, I don't hate that
The,
idea either.
there's a lot of natural boundaries on this property specifically.
Yeah.
And you guys mentioned balancing what works for this property and what works for an overall city planning. Widespread, what makes the most sense? There's a lot of natural borders here. We talked about the capital expenditure on a lift station and what can it maximally service.
Mhm.
Down here, we're kind of in,
Its own little.
it's a unicorn.
Yeah.
It's 32 acres as it sits right now is undevelopable, or 32 lots,
Yeah.
however many acres.
About 70.
74. Okay.
As it sits today, probably not developable without the septic.
It makes me think then too, what other areas in our city could also fit in that zoning
Right.
area?
I think that would maybe be a good,
Yeah, I like that idea.
Would that then allow us to potentially then limit that a little bit more, where at some point, like maybe that's no longer being a proposed future land use?
Yep. So there's pluses and minuses to both pathways,
Mhm.
call it. I would say one of the challenges tied with if we were to go the CUP route and allow it as a CUP within the rural residential is we'll have to really be tight on the stipulations
Mhm.
within the ordinance, additional conditions besides what you could place as a commission. And that can be a challenge because we got to make sure those are right. If we create a new zoning district, one of the pluses to that is we can put in some of those same stipulations within the ordinance itself, but there would be no property that's zoned that way right now. So every request would have to come forward in a rezone fashion,
Sure.
and they would have to provide justification to rezone that based on our qualifying factors.
Right.
So
And you have qualifying factors, and I don't
Yeah.
like the idea of obviously people coming to spot zone certain things. That's not a good thing to do. That's why I
Yeah.
asked if we have a new zoning, is it feasible to look as a city, what other options might be able to at the same time zone those unicorns per se?
And one other route we could take with that too is because one of the factors we look at when we rezone is just what we looked at earlier this evening on some of the monastery stuff is the future land use map.
Yeah.
There could be an avenue that we amend of the future land use map and define on there where those future areas are.
Sure.
We wouldn't have to do that, but I think that would set that stage pretty well in determining the assessment if that property is suitable for that or not.
Great.
Does it meet what we clearly defined in our future land use map? Is it in one of those areas? And then that would give justification for a yes or a no
Yeah.
response to that.
And if we went with that kind of route, then I'm assuming the one map with like all the future lift stations and all of that would be considered when we look at something like that, like.
Yeah, I think we should have discussion. I think maybe I'll try to get our engineer invited to one of our meetings and just kind of go through that from his lens because I cannot speak that language effectively. So it'd be good for him to kind of help paint a picture too. And okay, these are kind of the areas, and from his lens, these are the areas that would be very challenging that maybe are near those boundaries, and that would help us set the stage for defining it on that future land use map.
Sure.
That may help you limit the areas too then.
Yeah.
To, you point that.
Well, then you could still keep
Areas
your
that
rural
would
residential
actually
for what we wanted it to
match,
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea. That's a good idea. Does that help you now?
Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, no, I have homework to do. So,
That's good.
yeah, like I said, I will try to come back next month with some example language and stipulations and that. And
I
then
mean, and
think
if you got time, you could look at both kind of options, and then
Yep.
maybe we'll have the other couple members here too, and you can study up too, right? Great.
Cool.
Anything else for Nate on that one? All right, we can move to general updates.
Just a couple here. I did submit what's called our TA grant. So it's our Transportation Alternatives Grant. Actually, thanks to Corey for the letter of support
Thanks,
for
Corey.
that one as well. So that would extend the trail from where it currently ends, right at Jade Road in the corner of Kennedy over here, this corner. It would extend it coming down here through Kennedy's property, crossing a little bit of Corey's property right there, and then connect to the Rivers Bend Trail.
Cool.
I'm also looking at a second phase for when we completed Rivers Bend Park. We got what's called LCCMR funding. That is a legislative fund allocation. Looking at that as a second phase for Rivers Bend Park to complete the trail out here. There's no match required from the city for that.
Cool.
And we did well with our first one with documentation and all that. So we're looking at that. And then the last update I have is I did meet with a developer last week, and all I can say really is it'd be a senior apartment project on a property that already has utilities readily available. It's just an outlot right now. That may come forward this spring. So
Anything new on our acquired property where Casey's used to be, and what's happening with that?
no, on the Casey's site, no, other than they conducted an auction on a lot of the things that were salvageable or that.
Yep.
So
To the left, right there.
yeah, the completion of that allowed us to basically put that money towards the eventual demolition of the building and that. So
Are you gonna are they gonna demolish it? I thought we were gonna keep stuff for gassing, for the fire, for police, those types of things.
for the fueling and such,
Yep.
yeah, the building
Okay.
more than likely would
Go away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. And anybody got anything else? You got anything
Kind of
else?
have a question.
Yeah.
Do we know how much like our housing growth grew last year? So it seems like we had a lot of projects pop up, so I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so I actually put something in the newsletter that will be coming out that everyone should get direct mailed to or whatnot. So our single family permits were slightly up this year. So we saw some activity actually out in Northland Park out here.
Mhm.
Yeah, so lumber one has kind of chugged away out there, and this is starting to fill out. So, and we're having conversations with other developers in that in terms of facilitating more infill housing. Some of that may come forward as well, but overall, yeah, our single family permits were up, and then we had the 2 apartment projects that proceeded, so we were up in multifamily. What I'll say about multifamily is we only have, I think maybe 2, 3 lots that are zoned properly and have utilities there that would facilitate more multifamily. After that, we don't have anything else. And we are getting some interest on those lots, like the senior apartment that I mentioned, and then a second phase of potentially Joetown apartments. So you may see some more growth on that, but after that, there's not really anything else for multifamily. So,
And when is our comp plan coming back here?
yep. So our comp plan was in 2018. So a couple years.
Soonish.
Yeah, a couple years. Yep. Now in the greater Minnesota, we're not required to update it once every 10 years. In the 7-county metro area, it's a requirement by the Met Council. Legally, you have to update it every 10 years, but we still strive to update it every 10 years. So we have allocated money out of the budget every year. We put some money away to account for that comprehensive plan and hiring a consultant to do that because it's quite the task. Specifically the engagement component. So yeah, couple more years already. It's 2026, crazy. So yeah,
Anything else, Nate?
I don't have anything. No.
Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
I got a motion.
Second.
I got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed. Welcome to the fun. Thanks, everybody.